tech interviews, am I right?
Yeah.
They can feel like you're walking a tightrope sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You think you're prepared, and then bam, a
That's,
curveball question comes out of nowhere.
it happens to the best of us.
Totally.
Yeah.
So today we're diving deep into the Code to Cash podcast, and honestly, the host has some amazing advice on how to turn those interview, well, let's just call them learning experiences,
Yeah.
into actual job offers.
And they would know, this host, they really get real about some early career moments that I think a lot of people listening can probably relate to.
Oh, for sure. Like this one story,
Yeah.
early career, fresh out of school,
Mm-hmm.
feeling good, feeling confident about their coding skills.
Yeah.
They walk into an interview thinking, okay, my side projects are going to land this.
Right.
But then the interviewer starts asking about practical coding challenges, like on platforms like LeetCode
Oh, yeah.
and HackerRank, and just it all went downhill from there.
Oof. I've been there. You can know like all the theory, all the concepts.
Right.
But if you haven't actually been practicing those specific types of coding challenges that they throw at you in interviews, you're going to be caught off guard.
Totally.
It's like, showing up to a basketball game having only read about dribbling techniques.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where a lot of us, myself included, might start to panic a little.
Right.
But the Code to Cash hosts had a great takeaway. They were like, those early rejections, they were like a wake-up call.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I need to treat the interview process like an athlete trains for a competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not just about like mindless practice. They specifically mention, focusing on the types of problems and technical skills that actually align with the roles they were interested in.
Oh, interesting.
So you can really tailor your practice based on the type of companies and positions you're really hoping to land.
Now that is what I call actionable advice. It's not just like, oh, go prepare more.
Right.
It's strategic, it's focused preparation, love it. And you know what? Speaking of being strategic, another point the Code to Cash host brought up that I thought was so key was knowing your audience.
Yes.
And by that, I mean really, truly understanding the company that you were interviewing with.
Yes. And this is where going deeper than just the company's About Us page on our website really pays off.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about like digging into the company culture, maybe some of their recent projects, checking out even your interviewer's background on LinkedIn if you can find them.
Yes. The host had this, oh my gosh, almost cringeworthy story about walking into an interview completely clueless about like a major product launch the company had just announced.
Oof. Yeah. Yeah. I bet that left a mark.
But how do you not know that?
It's like going to a dinner party and not realizing you're sitting next to like the guest of honor.
Right.
Just a little bit of research can go such a long way.
For sure. For sure. It shows you're genuinely interested, you're invested.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, that can be just as impressive as your actual technical skills.
Oh, absolutely.
And this actually leads perfectly into another point the host made, and I thought this was great because we talk about this a lot.
Okay.
Communication. Communication is everything.
Yeah.
You can be the best coder in the room.
Right.
But if you can't effectively communicate your thought process, explain what you're doing, it won't matter.
Yeah. And by communication, we're not just talking about like being well-spoken and,
Right.
eloquent, although that's obviously helpful, but it's more about being able to break down these complex ideas,
Yes.
explain your problem-solving approach, and let the interviewer really see how your brain works.
It's like that classic saying, show your work. Remember those math tests.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They want to see the steps. They want to see the thought process that got you to that solution, not just the final answer.
Right, because in a real work environment, you're rarely coding just like by yourself in isolation.
Right.
Being able to collaborate effectively with your team, explain your code, being open to feedback, it's crucial.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not just a code writing machine. You're part of a team. You got to be able to communicate and work together.
Exactly. And this brings us to a point that really resonated with me. And it's this idea that it's not always about being the absolute best coder.
Interesting.
It's about finding the right fit.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
This is something the Code to Cash host learned the hard way. They talked about this one interview where they aced all the technical questions, but still ended up feeling like something was off.
It's like that feeling when you meet someone new and they look great on paper, but there's just something missing, right? That certain spark or connection. It can be the same way with companies.
Totally. And in the Code to Cash host's case, it turned out that the company was looking for someone who was more collaborative, maybe a little less intense about their coding style.
Yeah.
Even though their technical skills were top-notch, they just weren't the right fit for the team's overall dynamic.
Which brings us to another crucial point. The importance of soft skills. Things like empathy, adaptability, teamwork. These can be just as important as your technical prowess, sometimes even more so.
It's like finding the right puzzle piece. You might have the right shape and size, but if the colors don't match, it's just not going to work. It's about finding a company where your values and work style align, where you can not only contribute your skills, but also feel like you truly belong.
Absolutely. And that feeling of belonging can do wonders for your job satisfaction and long-term success. So how do you figure out if a company is the right fit for you? The Code to Cash host had some really insightful tips on this.
Okay, let's hear it. I'm all about those actionable takeaways.
Well, for starters, they emphasize the importance of paying attention to those subtle cues during the interview process.
What kind of cues are we talking about? Give me an example.
Sure, let's say a company boasts about having a fast-paced, work hard, play hard environment on their website. But then you notice during your interview that everyone seems stressed, overworked, and there's not a lot of camaraderie. That could be a red flag that the company culture isn't what they're portraying it to be.
Ah, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
It's about reading between the lines and trusting your gut instincts.
exactly. And this ties back to the importance of researching the company beforehand. But it's not just about memorizing facts about their products or services. It's about trying to get a feel for their values, their work-life balance, their overall vibe.
So it's kind of like dating in a way. You're both trying to see if there's a match.
Exactly. You're looking for that perfect fit, both technically and culturally.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
Preparation, research, communication, cultural fit. But let's be real. Even when you do all the right things, rejection is still part of the game.
Absolutely. It's inevitable, and honestly, it can be one of the toughest parts of the job search process, especially in the tech industry, where competition can be fierce.
Totally. And the Code to Cash host was very open about their own experiences with rejection. They actually shared a story about how they initially let those rejections get to them, which really impacted their confidence.
It's so easy to fall into that trap. It's like each rejection feels like a personal attack on your skills and your worth.
For sure.
Huh.
So how did the host turn things around? How did they go from letting those rejections get them down to actually using them as fuel to improve?
Well, their big aha moment came when they started to view those rejections not as failures, but as opportunities for growth and learning.
That's a powerful mindset shift. Did they elaborate on how they actually put that into practice?
They did, and it's surprisingly simple, but not always easy. They started by seeking specific feedback from their interviews.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
They asked the interviewers what they could have done better even after getting rejected.
Exactly. Now, they mentioned that it felt awkward at first, and not every interviewer was receptive, but a surprising number of them were actually happy to give some pointers, especially if they had been impressed with the candidate overall.
That takes guts. I can see how it would be incredibly valuable, though. It's like getting a peek behind the curtain to understand what interviewers are really looking for.
Precisely. And over time, the Code to Cash host actually started to look forward to those post-interview reflections, even if they didn't get the job. They said it became less about the rejection and more about gathering valuable data to refine their approach.
That's brilliant. They essentially turned those no's into their own personalized development program. And speaking of development, the host emphasized that feedback often highlighted areas they hadn't even realized they needed to work on, like explaining technical concepts more clearly or showcasing their ability to collaborate.
And that's the beauty of feedback, right? It can eliminate blind spots and help you become a more well-rounded candidate. The Code to Cash host even mentioned that they started practicing their interview skills with friends, doing mock interviews, and really focusing on those areas where they had received constructive criticism.
It's like they say, feedback is a gift, even when it's not wrapped in the prettiest package.
So true. And ultimately, by embracing those rejections as learning opportunities, the Code to Cash host was able to approach each interview with more confidence and a growth mindset.
Which I'm guessing ultimately led to them landing that dream job.
You got it. But here's the thing. The Code to Cash host emphasized that the most important thing wasn't just getting the job offer, it was finding a role and a company that was the right fit for them.
So it was about more than just checking boxes on a resume. It was about aligning with the company's values and feeling like they could truly thrive in that environment.
Exactly. And that sense of alignment, of finding your tribe, is what can make all the difference in your career journey.
Wow, talk about turning those dreaded tech interview rejections into something positive and empowering. So, for all of you out there navigating the sometimes treacherous waters of tech interviews, what's the key takeaway here?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. Rejection is a stepping stone, not a roadblock. It's going to happen. It's practically unavoidable. But it doesn't have to define your journey. Embrace the learning process, extract valuable lessons from every interview, and remember, each no brings you closer to the right yes.
I love that. So much wisdom packed into this one episode of Code to Cash. Big thanks to the hosts for sharing their experiences and insights.
Absolutely. And remember, listeners, you've got this.
And there you have it, your deep dive into turning those tech interview rejections into valuable lessons learned. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and remember every interview, no matter the outcome, is a chance to grow.